Welcome to One EMS, the assessment. We're here live at the Georgia EMS Association Providers Conference, here with Kyle Atkins of Phoenix.
And National. Phoenix and National, so both.
Well, I was getting there. I was going to let you go, your Phoenix Institute, you know, all the cool education, then also National EMS.
Yep.
Part of priority.
Yep.
You want to buy our company?
That is not a question for me.
Fair enough. I promise people that these questions will not jeopardize your job, except for you, Kyle. I'm going to ask you to no. 3, 2, 1 is the game we play. 3 easy questions, 2 middling questions, tougher, and then the last question is tough in the sense that it doesn't really have an answer.
Okay.
Right, and you get to pick from the category, so you at least get an idea of where we're going to go.
Okay.
So let's start with the first easy one. How long have you been in EMS?
So I've been in EMS for going on 11 years now. I started as a volunteer firefighter, got my EMT a year later, got my EMT, my advanced EMT, and then went right into medic. And so I've been a medic for right at 9 or 10 years right now. So
all right,
yeah, going into my 10th year.
That's a short run to go from being on the truck to having your own school kind of deal.
Yes.
So where in that path? This is part of the 3 questions. Where in that path did you go, I'd like to not just teach, but teach in my own way?
So I had a passion for teaching because I tried a lot to do the change of EMS and stuff like that. I tried to work that through being a provider. It didn't really work as well as I wanted it to. Like, there was a lot of frustration, so I said, hey, you know what, I'm going to get into teaching. When I got into teaching about 6 years ago, I found that I really had a passion for it. And then coming out of COVID, I'll be honest, the person, one of the schools I was working for and stuff like that, I was like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And so that's what led me to found Phoenix Institute out of Gainesville. That's what kind of got me in there, because you can have a lot more control of that educational content whenever you're not worrying about working under someone else's umbrella. So it was kind of just to have that autonomy and to and I'll be honest, like if you were to ask me now, like I would never suggest on the tails of COVID starting a school ever. Probably not necessarily the something I would suggest. It's not for the faint of heart. I'll say that much.
I gotcha. So question number 3 then, you talked about autonomy, right? I didn't get that. Doing it your own way is a different beast than working under somebody else's program. But after you started that school, now you went to National EMS, and you're an educator there. What's your position?
So I'm the training administrator for National EMS.
So that'd be the top teacher?
So essentially I'm over all of education training for National, and then I interface a lot with Priority in the Southeast region. We work together. The really cool part about being in a Priority company is that we have the ability to pick up the phone and call one another whenever a lot of agencies don't have that. So Central is another one of our sister companies. So whenever I was first onboarding and I had questions, I could pick up the phone. I could call my counterpart over there and say, hey, how do you manage this? How do you do that? And then we can actually pull our resources together, which is one of the great things about being a Priority company. To where it's not just me here at National, but it's National and Priority and AmbuCare and Puckett and all those across the spectrum. We all work together to enhance the education for all of our providers across the entire universe. Even though we're focused locally on education and running it and doing that piece, we're able to have this really cool interface with everyone else around us and do different initiatives, things like coming out, maybe we have a class that we're doing that's unique to our area, but other people want to do it. So maybe the guys from Central in Augusta come up to Athens, or maybe the guys from Newton or Walton come over, and then we start to interface with one another. So it's not so much of like Priority, while we are all individual brands and we have our individual way that we feel and we do, and that's really unique to what we do. The bigger picture is that we're a part of this larger family, and we're able to have that interaction with one another. We're able to have that interaction amongst the companies without worry about being competitive or anything.
Right. Now, I get that, and I would imagine you actually have a bigger even support system with the corporate being not just in Georgia but in multiple states, that you might get resources that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely, and like that's one of the coolest parts about my job is that I get to interface with a lot of different providers in different areas, I recently. I was talking with one of the guys in Tennessee, at one of the Tennessee companies. I've been emailing back and forth with another company at another state. And all we're doing is saying, hey, how do we make education better within priority? And then, how do we benefit the stakeholders around us? So we provide at National, we provide the 911 service in Oconee, Clark, Morgan, and Rockdale counties.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we'll do is that when we're doing training, we invite them to come join us. We invite people from the communities that we serve to come and do that, especially our volunteers. And sometimes we're able to have a little bit more resources, so we can host some of the bigger things, and then they can come do that, and then everybody wins. At the end of the day, everyone wins because our education is focused on all of our providers, and it's focused on
making everybody better.
Right, and it's also focused on the greater good of serving the patients in the areas that we're at.
I like it. I got you. All right, 2 of the tougher questions. If you had all the power in the world, nothing stopping you, what is one thing you would change about EMS?
I would say professional development. I think that I'm associated with a lot of agencies and organizations that are healthcare based and not EMS based, and there's a lot of professional development opportunities that go far beyond a typical leadership class or things like that. A lot of that stuff hasn't really taken on the feet, and there's not really that movement in EMS. So I would probably use it to funnel money into professional development that goes beyond things like HR, things like data analytics, things like all of those things that kind of we learn on the fly. That's what I would probably work on and work to do.
Okay, all right. You've obviously worked towards that yourself.
Yes, I
mean,
do.
like I said, 10 years in is a very short run to get to where you are with that. So you kind of covered your path. One of the things I asked is, what was your path in your career? How'd you get promotions? And you established that a little bit. So I'm going to flip it a little bit here. We always talk about sacrificing EMS. We sacrifice our time through school, our time on the truck. If you work at 24/48, that's 1/3 of your life, and all this math that we like to throw out. What's one thing you sacrificed in your life for your career that you regret?
I will say that whenever I was a new paramedic, I missed a lot of on the 24/48 schedule. I missed a bunch of first for my kids. I missed first Christmas for, we made the best of it. We did what we can, but if I could say, go back and do it again, I would probably find a way that I don't have to do that, because ultimately, while I want to support my community, while I want to do that, my family comes first. So I would say that there were many times where I had a lot of positive benefit from the job, but a lot of times where it was like you had to have that kind of negative trait.
Is that something you would have changed? Like, if you go back and change some of that?
I would say yeah. I would say that I would. I would probably change the. I started out as a firefighter paramedic, and I found that I really loved being a paramedic more than I like being a firefighter, which is why that's kind of my direction now.
Sure.
But I wouldn't change that piece, because it made me who I am today, and it really was foundational for setting those things forward.
One of the things I like to talk to people about is balance, finding balance in your life, even when you're new in the field. And like, for the first 5 years I was married, I was already in the field as a medic. I got my medic right before I got married, or about the same time. And so that first 5 years, we're like, hey, I'm going to tell the people who have kids, if you went off, I'll work Christmas Day, because it's bonuses and all this other stuff. I'll work the holidays, because my wife and I were like, we understand what the career is like. We understand it, especially then. I mean, you're talking about early 2000s. Right. Money's not great, and anything we can do to get more money, because at some point we'll probably want that time off.
Right.
And then the balance I found later was, it's like, well, if I'm not scheduled on a holiday, I'm going to take it. We'll do Christmas morning with the kids. If I am scheduled, we'll just move it a day forward or a day back. We try to teach them the balance of work and life and everything else. And it's just to go, I have to be here, which is the mistakes I made in my career. I have to be here. Something you burn out. You got to find that balance. So that's why I asked that question.
And I think that I experienced the same thing with that whole that desire. One of the best strengths about being an EMS and being a provider is that we are so dedicated to what we do. We're dedicated, and sometimes that can take front seat. And I've had to learn that balance.
Sure.
Where instead of being on the front seat, it's got to be all things in moderation. I remember I was a volunteer firefighter. My wife and I were first married, or getting ready to get married, or something like that. And we were spending her birthday together, and I went and ran 3 volunteer firefighter calls, fire calls, during her birthday, and just kind of left her. Probably not the best idea in the world, but you know what? She forgave me, and we're together 10 years later. So
and forgiveness is key. And you only get, I want to really speak to that. You're talking about the volunteer. I understand volunteers, people need help, this and that and other. I have seen too much in this field, from volunteer to fully paid supervisor, all that stuff. I've seen too much of, sacrificing the family. I have to go, and then you lose your first wife, you lose your second wife, your kids hate you, all this stuff, and it's like, did you that day have to run? I'm not talking about you specifically, but using it as an example. Did you have to run through? There wasn't anybody else because there's nobody else that's a dad to your kid. There's now, because you lost it.
Right.
It's that you gotta. Man, you just really have to find that balance and go, does the world stop turning, and what are the ramifications? Just like when we do medicine, if I push this drug, what's the possible side effects? What's the counteract? What's all this stuff we have to think about?
I mean, whenever I had got out of education for a little bit to go and jump back on a truck for the period of COVID. And what I found is under that, I didn't work any extra. I worked my 24 on, my 48 off, and that was it. I didn't pick up, I didn't do any of those things, because I had to reestablish that to make sure that I was doing the right thing by my family, by my people.
I get you. All right, for the tough one, you got 4 categories: finance, mental health, education, or ask you anything.
Let's go with education, because that's kind of my wheelhouse. That's kind of my wheelhouse. That's kind of my wheelhouse.
What is, you're talking about professional development, you talk about that. What is one of them, I'm talking about overarching, big, we're going to take some time to get there if we band together. What's a big goal to get paramedic education, or all EMS education, up to par where it's recognized with the higher levels of nursing?
I think that we have to come together as a profession, and we have to set professional standards. We have to say, this is what we expect, because I think that ultimately, a lot of times we try to build the courses and build the things without saying, actually, the root problem is that there's not necessarily always this universally understood, this is how our providers act, this is how our providers do these things. And I think that's where the letter organizations have to come together and say, you know what, we believe that these are the standards that we should have. And then we look at those standards and we say, okay, you know what, maybe the standard is that we should do, maybe it's we should be respectful, something super simple, and say, okay, then we need to teach how to do that. We need to drill down into that, and that's what professional development can go back to.
Gotcha.
It's not just let's go to a conference and let's listen to a speaker and let's hear this. It's let's actually engage what we're doing, and let's make it to where that professional development becomes something that's more than just okay, here's a leadership class, here's this, professional standards, I think, take us get us there, and then we have to say, out of those professional standards, we are going to create our courses, we're going to create these things off of these standards, and then move it forward.
I got you. All right, you know what? It sounds like we need to do a summit where people come in with the ideas and we hash them out, and then we go forward and are either together or in different ways. But that's a conversation for another time. Kyle, glad that you're on. We'll say it real loud, we are, and then together we'll say One EMS, all right? We are One EMS. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it.